Hello pattern lovers, you're welcome to another exciting tutorial, and today's video will be a detailed tutorial on how to go about a dartless skirt with butt contour using the hip allocation method. In this video, I'll be showing you few tips and techniques to apply when using the hip allocation method for your skirt. And if you'd like that, kindly watch this video to the very end, and let's get to it. I have my pattern paper ready plus my other drafting equipment, and what I'm going to do now is to create a space for the front pattern. We will be drafting the front first before we go over to the back. And here I'm using a value higher than the hip measurement I'm working with to create a space for the front. After that, I will just roll it out this way. Then I'll place my measuring tape on the top of the paper and go down to the skirt length. Then I will come up to the knee line. I'll also mark the hip line, but then from the hip line I'll be going up 1 inch. Then I'll also be going down 1 inch from the hip line. So basically I have 7, 8, 9 as the hip line here, and that is just to create a space like a balance for the hip curve, so it's not too pointy or too sharp on that point, but just well curved and blended. Okay, there's nothing too serious about it. I'm going to rule all of these points out, then I'll label it waistline, hip, knee, and then the skirt length. And now it's time for a little calculation to go about the hip allocation and the hip arc, all of that. So the hip I'm working with is 40 inches, hip 40. Now to get the front hip arc, remember it's just best to measure this, but in case you don't, like I said, I'll be sharing few tips and techniques to go about this in case you couldn't measure your model. So I'm going to divide the hip measurement by 2, and it will give me 20 inches. Now 20 inches minus 1 would give me 19 inches. This 19 inches now will be the front hip measurement. I'll be using this 19 inches to get the hip measurement for the front. Then for the back, I will be adding 1 inch to the hip measurement divided by 2. I'm going to divide 40 inches by 2, and that would give me 20 inches. Now 20 inches plus 1, that would give me 21 inches. And just like that, the 21 inches will be for the back hip. Now there are levels to this thing, and the tip is, or the technique is, you don't just minus 1 inch from the hip measurement divided by 2, or add 1 inch from the hip measurement divided by 2 for every one. It actually depends on the difference between the waist and the hip of the person you're working with, so you have to take note of that. Let's say the difference is like 12 or 14 inches. The difference between the waist and then the hip is like 12 or 14 inches. Then you're going to use 1.5 instead of the 1 inch I used there. It's going to be 20 minus 1.5 and 20 plus 1.5. Let's take for instance waist 28 and hip 40. When you minus 28 from 40, you're going to have 12 inches left. So with that 12 inches difference, you're going to do 1.5. Like you're going like the hip arc, the minus and then the plus you're going to do is going to be plus 1.5 and minus 1.5. I hope that is clear. But then again, if the person, naturally there are people that the butts are there, the hips are there, and then there are people that has this very large hip, like wider hip, and then the butt is really not that obvious. You're going to use this 1 inch I used there. That's the case of this particular tutorial. The hips are there, is really wide, but the butt is not really voluptuous, like really obvious, just like the hip is obvious. So in that case, you're going to use just 1 inch, even though the difference from the waist and then the hip is like 12 inches, 13 or 14 inches. Okay. But then again, like I said in the beginning of this video, just go ahead and measure it so that you know what you're going for. But for me, I'll be using this measurement I have here. That's front hip 19, back hip 21. And let's go ahead and put all of this into action. Now, on the waist, I'm going to take the waist measurement divided by 4, which is 28 divided by 4, 7 inches. I'll come to the 3 hip lines and take the hip measurement divided by 2. It's 19, yeah? The front hip arc is 19, divided by 2 is 9.5. I'm going to mark it on these 3 lines. and you're going to divide the front hip by 2 and also the back hip by 2 and not by 4. Then on the knee, whatever I have on the hip, I can decide to come in 1.5, like minus 1.5 from whatever I have on the hip, or 1 inch, or even 2 inches, depending on how pencil you want it. But the more pencil your skirt is, the more you have to have a very high slit at the back so you can walk comfortably. But then what I'm going to do here is to just minus 1 inch from whatever I have on the hip, because I don't want it to pencil, and I'm going to take it all the way to the skirt length. Whatever I have on the knee, I'm going to take it all the way to the skirt length. Then I'm going to curve the hip this way. Just see the curve placement and do the same thing, just so you have a smooth curve. Then on the center front, I'm going to come in by 1 inch to avoid folds. This is a dartless skirt, so you're going to do this part so that it eliminates those folds that are likely to occur. And if you have a space on the upper part of the paper, you can come up 0.25 on the side of the front skirt, and then you connect it to the 1 inch you came down from the center of the skirt. Okay, that's basically it for the front. I'm going to just slit the paper into two, so I have the back part, which is just this. I'm gonna head to um create the waistline, the hip line, knee line, and then the skirt length. Now on the waistline, from the center back line, I'll be coming in 1 inch. You can also do 0.75, but whatever you want to come in here depends on whatever you also use to contour the center back line for the upper part, in case you're doing this as a gown. So if you use 0.75 to contour the center back of the half length or the upper bodice, you're also going to use 0.75 on this point so that it will align and sit properly on the center back. Okay, now the back hip arc is actually 21, right? When you divide 21 into 2, you're going to have 10.5. I'm going to take 10 inches from the center back line. I'll mark 10 inches here. Then the other half inch will be going to the outside the center back line. I hope that is clear. I'll be showing you that. So here I'll mark half inch here. Then from the center back line, I have 10 inches. When I place my measuring tape, it's 10.5 altogether. Half inch out of the center back line, then inward from the center back line, 10 inches. That's how you're going to do it. Or you can decide to do 1 inch, but then the person must really have a bigger butt for you to do that. On the knee line, I'll be coming in 1 inch and I'll take it down to the skirt length this way and connect it straight. Now to connect it from the hip, you can decide to place your curve this way and just connect it from that point to the knee. I will just connect it and show you, and I'll also be showing you another way you can do it or go about it in case you don't want it this way. Can you see? And of course, if you're doing this method, you can make it smooth, or better still, you start from the hip line and come down to your under butt line. Of course, you have to measure from your natural waistline or whatever your skirt will sit to your under butt. And for me, this is the value I have for mine. So when you get it, you're going to like come in from the center back line 1 inch. Then you first connect it. Let me just show you. It's just best I do it practical. When I get the under butt length, I'll come in 1 inch from the center back line. Then place my curve just the same way you see it. Curve it from the hip to that point. Then place my curve straight and connect it from that point, the under butt line to the knee line. I hope that is clear. Whichever one you want. But then, if you're making this for someone that has a bigger butt, that means you'll be taking whatever hip measurement you use for the front. We use 9.5 for the front. You're going to, from the center back, you might mark your 9.5. Then the other 1.5 is going to go to the center back. That's for people that has really large butt, big butt, so that it will create the needed space for their butt. The 1.5 would be going to the center back. That's the essence of the hip arc or the hip allocation method. You don't just add it to the side. The back measurement is bigger because the butt is bigger than the center front or the front part. So you're going to add whatever difference you have from the front hip arc and the back hip arc. You're going to add it to the center back because that's where the butt is, and that's where you're trying to create a space for. Okay, I hope that is clear. Then the knee is just the same thing you did for the front too. You start from the 1 inch you came in from the knee, the center back line. From there you mark your the same value you have on the front knee measurements. Okay. Now back to what I was trying to explain. On the center front, you come down 1 inch. On the side, you go up 0.25 or half inch, whichever one you want, depending on how rounded or how curved you want it to sit on the waist. And you're going to connect from whatever you have on the side to the one you came down on the center. And that's it. This way, there won't be any fold on the front because there is no dart. And then the one we did on the back, you already created a space for the board, so there's no need for that for the back pattern too. The only time it's necessary for you to come down on the center back is when you're using the skirt for your corset, those inbuilt corsets. You have to come down on the center back so that it will sit pretty on the center back. Or if that is the style you want for the skirt, just go ahead and do it. But you just need to come down on the center front and not the back. I'll follow the curve or the shape I have on the center back and add my zipper allowance of 1 inch and connect it this way. And that's basically it. So after adding the zipper allowance, then for your slits, if your skirt is 2 pencil, you have to come up like 3 inches from the knee line, or from the hip line you come down 6 inches or 7 inches, and that's where the slits would start, depending on the kind of slit you're going for. But you should have your zipper allowance there before adding your slit style or the slit allowance, right? So I'm simply going to cut it out this way. Then after cutting it out, this is what it looks like. And looking at the pattern now, you can barely say this is the side back or this is the center back. So you have to label if that will make it easier, or you notch so that you know which part is going to which part. I'll cut off the front pattern, and this is what it looks like. So you're simply going to transfer this to your fabric, add necessary allowance. You already have the zipper allowance on the center back. You just add the side seam allowance and the stitching allowance, and happy sewing. So here we've come to the end of what's told here today. Let me know your thoughts in the comment, and let me know if you should be trying this, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye bye.